Miss Donna Sarkar, Head, Windows Insider Program, Microsoft. We have Mr. Kofi Owusu-Inshira, CEO, Insano Limited. And Dr. Sam Sumwa, Chief Innovation and Technology Officer, Cisco. So this panel will cover automation, e-government services, and data. So Ethel, you can take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for staying and listening. We don't get this often, so we're really excited about this. So today we wanted to look at automation, e-government services, and have a conversation about data. Now the thing is that I truly believe that even for enterprises and tech entrepreneurs to succeed in this space, government must almost be the first teacher, right? So if you provide government services, people know how to pay their taxes, people know how to access government services via a mobile phone or a laptop. Government then almost becomes a teacher and a precursor for anybody who's building later, because the populace is used to using technology. Now today we've got an amazing group of people who are doing amazing things in their different spaces. I'm going to give them a chance to talk a little bit, just introduce themselves a little bit and what they're doing in the space. This conversation it's an interesting conversation, because even if you read the Ghana ICT policy document, you realize there are like 14 pillars in there, and about 5 of those pillars all touch on how government provides technology services to its citizenry, or how government provides technology services to enterprise. So this seems to be almost the bedrock of all the other conversations. Like, if government can get this right and be able to have a strong foundation on which it provides services to government, to citizens, and to enterprises, then we can almost start to see the path to digitizing a whole country. We all here have really strong ideas, loosely held, and we'll speak to these. So what I want to do is just go around and have everybody just tell us a little bit what they do, in the space they are in, and then we'll take it from there. We start with Kofi from Insano.
Good afternoon. So Insano is a mobile financial services company. We are operating in 7 African countries. We are typically a mobile money aggregator. We also aggregate financial services. So typically banks work through us to be able to build their mobile banking applications, money transfer services. We work with a lot of money transfer organizations across Africa.
Good morning, thank you. My name is Sam Sumoa. I'm the Chief Innovation and Technology Officer for Cisco Sumoa Information Systems. We are a cloud-based ERP company. We develop SaaS applications. And I've also have a stint in government as the first DG of NITA, and we work on the ICT policy, so I get a chance to talk a lot more about that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Donna Sarkar. I work at Microsoft. I am based out of the US in a beautiful little city called Seattle, Washington. I'm here today with all of you because officials and universities to build up the tech talent in those regions. I'm absolutely convinced that Ghana is next on the list. Thank you.
Good morning. and thank you for having me here this morning. My name is Rizwan Hussain. I'm the government industry leader for IBM's Middle East and Africa business. Our general manager, Angela, for IBM Ghana, is unable to be here today, and she apologizes, but she will be here tomorrow. She's out of the country in Abuja today, but she will be here tomorrow. So IBM has taken a very proactive approach to the African continent and to the Middle East and Africa region at large. We've had research centers set up in a couple of countries here, certainly in South Africa and in Kenya as well. And we were also very, very instrumental in working with Rwanda and Smart Africa in helping develop the Smartest Cities blueprint and really how do you drive digital transformation across the African continent. So we do believe there is a massive opportunity for IBM to partner with government and non-government agencies in Africa. And when I say non-government, certainly the telco sector is one that we are certainly looking to partner with over here. And really, what we'll talk a little bit today about, digital transformation and how we're looking to create centers of excellence here in the African continent. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's get straight to the question. So on the last panel, there was a conversation about, Mr. Yofi Grant was talking about how there are people building technology services that could be useful to government. I'll give you an example. So about 2 years ago, I was invited to a little meeting. I think the Queen of Belgium was in Ghana, and she had, as part of her trip, was going to see a tech company called Pharmaline. And she came in with some government ministers. And Pharmaline, since 2012, had been doing an amazing job in working with farmers and providing them information and data to be able for them to farm well. And in that meeting, you could tell that even though this person had done an amazing job, so much so that the Queen of Belgium when she was in Ghana, wanted to see him, our government people had no idea who this person was or what they were, what they had done or what they're doing. And I've seen this in multiple occasions with people that are building really interesting things. Now, this is the context leading to the question around if we are going to if government is going to enable services for citizenry, how do we ensure that there is a tech ecosystem of people out there who I think sometimes are what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit jaded because they get invited sometimes to meetings and nothing comes out of it. And so are not willing to engage, but have technologies that government can maybe leverage on for PPPs to be able to provide these services. How do we begin to sort of chip at the gap in the middle there? Who wants to start?
Sure, I can share a perspective on that. So, when we work with, and I've had the opportunity and the good fortune of working with a lot of different governments in the region, but then also globally, in Europe, in the Americas, and then over here as well. To me, there are two fundamental things that need to be looked at. I think the first is really what we call having the focus on the citizen. And I think there was a question that was asked around this topic in the last session as well. And to us, that is fundamentally important, right? It's about, today is all about how do you provide that personalized experience, the personalized interaction for the citizen. Governments traditionally have been very complex to deal with. And today it's all about how do you provide that simple interaction for citizens. It's also very much about how do you build the trust with government and citizens, right? How do you create that transparency? So for us, this whole concept around how do you focus on the citizen, how do you look at improving their user experience, how you engage them in actually being able to build services for them is something that we're certainly looking at. And you know, as IBM, we've taken a slightly different approach. We actually are not looking to build out any solutions at this point in time. What we're looking at doing is really understand the needs of the end user, understand the needs of the citizen, and then based on that, use the capabilities, use the assets, use the technologies that we have to actually build out specific solutions based on that. One of the other things that I just want to say around the citizen, which we see across the globe, is a massive initiative around what we call Citizen 360. So this is all about how do you create a holistic understanding of the citizen and their needs across different socioeconomic dimensions. You know, what are their needs from an employment perspective, from an education perspective, from a social services perspective, from a healthcare perspective, from a mobility perspective. You know, how do you sort of create a Citizen 360 view? And these kinds of initiatives are very much on top of you know, the identity card program that you have, right? So that's very much around how do you create that integration, but then how do you actually create a Citizen 360 around that? So that's one big concept that we have, which is all around focusing on the citizen and being able to look at initiatives around Citizen 360. The second big area where we see a massive trend around this area is around creating what we call platform approach, right? So creating platforms for delivering government services. So when you're thinking about a platform, probably the simplest way for me to describe that is, you know, as we all think of Uber as a mobility platform or Airbnb as a place where people go to book accommodation and so on, similarly, we believe there should be a one government platform that will allow you to provide government services. We all know that government operates in a very siloed way, right? And the way to break down those silos is to come up with a one government platform approach. And really the role of technology players like ourselves, like Microsoft, like other companies out there, is enabling you with what we call innovative capabilities. Innovative capabilities in data, in artificial intelligence, in IoT, in blockchain, in social mobile, in cloud, in security, right? That we bring all those various components together so we can give you the platform that allows you to bring this ecosystem together. You know, this ecosystem of government agency, of private stakeholders, of potentially NGOs that operate in Africa, and keep the citizens in the middle of that. So again, the two things that I want to just share with you is one, the whole focus on the citizen, and the second is really taking more of a platform approach as you try and build out your digital transformation program.
Thank you. I like the idea of the government as a platform, right, which is more of a pull factor versus a push factor. So it's not, the onus doesn't become as much on government to go out and look for solutions, but to provide a place, a platform, an environment where then people can build on, which is actually quite like the idea. Thank you very much. Can I hear from Dr. Sowa, please? What are your thoughts on the gap? How do we breach the gap?
Thank you. I was pretty excited when Prof. Apiudu asked me to be part of this program today, because I was there some 10, 15 years ago when working with Professor Ginono and many others, starting from 2000, when we tried to put together the documents to lay the foundation for Ghana's ICT development. And having been the first Director General of NITA, we had a chance to lay the foundation for many of the implementations that are happening right now. And while the Vice President was giving his speech, I kept smiling because quite often when I read the newspaper in the morning, I hear him announcing a new technology effort. I go have a good coffee because I can see that a lot of the foundation that we laid is coming to life. E-justice, e-procurement, paperless port, and things of that sort. But my concern is that as much as we are trying to come up with a digital roadmap for the future today, the challenge that I foresee is implementation. Because quite often we are able to come up with wonderful plans, strategies, wonderful documents, nice colors, Ghana flag and all that. And the thing is that you sit back, you realize that very little implementation is happening. My sister Estelle, when she was here, was asking about NITA. Because over the years, government has invested over $300–400 million in so many things, and yet we are seeing very little. So what I see here is a need to ensure that the implementation strategies that we need to put together are well done, so that this digital roadmap that we are defining today for the digital economy will really happen. And the other thing I worry about is that the way we define our programs sometimes are such that by the time we are actually implementing them, time has passed us by. For example, if you take the e-procurement and the e-justice that we are implementing right now, those were planned years ago, and AI has taken over. The type of e-justice program that other countries are implementing right now has a lot of AI component in it, which ours didn't have. And I'm hoping that we'll be a little bit nimble in the kinds of strategies that we are going to come up at the end of these 2 days of discussions. Because as many of us are aware, over the years, the government has invested a lot of money in data centers, connectivity, shared services. But even as you go around and talk to the various stakeholders, you realize that still things are working in silos. For example, the National Data Center, is it really being used by NIA, by SNIT, by Bank of Ghana, and many organizations? But even as you go around, you realize that we still have the situation of these shared services not being fully utilized. So the challenge I see is that as much as government is making the effort to roll out e-services and to move Ghana into the digital economy, I think we really have to look at the issue of implementation. Because if you travel around the world, you realize that a lot of things are happening to the point that where AI is influencing a lot of the things that is being done. In the good old days, when we went to some of the shops in the US, after you shop, you stand in front of a cashier, and then she will check your things out. These days, they're eliminating most of them. You just go in there, self-checkout. And I've read about Amazon shop that they come up with where there's not, they don't even have a cashier or anybody in there. You just walk in there, you buy what you want, and you come out. So the challenge I see for government services is that we need to make sure that at the end of these 2 days, we have a pretty good strategy for implementing some of the conclusions, recommendations that we are going to come up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sowa. Though I was going to ask the implementation question next, so now I don't have my second question. That's fine. Cofie, you are an entrepreneur. You've been in the space. I've known you a while in the space. What are your thoughts?
No, so thank you. And then again, Mr. Vice President, thank you so much for being here. We've had a very wonderful working relationship with the ministers of, the minister and the deputies of communications. We are particularly excited, and especially since we started the work, on setting up the Chamber of Technology Companies, and going with you to the Silicon Valley. The good thing for us at the Chamber and as respective CEOs of fintechs and technology companies is with the level of interest that we are seeing, particularly in this dispensation, with the present governmental leaders as far as technology is concerned. We are now setting up the ecosystem that is required for us to be able to bridge that gap, Ethel, you are talking about. For the very first time, we can clearly see a path to scaling some of the solutions we are building. Hitherto, if you had a product or a service that's required for you to know, have a proper KYC on the persons who are utilizing your service, it was almost impossible to do so. With the National ID program, now we are getting to the point where the ecosystem is coming full circle. One other thing that we realize is that utilization of technology and the growing of the space, and I like the example you gave about PharmaLine and the fact that certain stakeholders within the space perhaps did not know about PharmaLine, etc. Also has to do with the utilization of these technology solutions by the locals ourselves in the country. Don't forget our literacy rate in Ghana is 76.6 or so. And so if we build applications and technology solutions without considering those who are if you like, for want of a better way of putting it, digitally excluded, and trying to bring them into the foray of these technology solutions, then we are building half-baked solutions. So a lot of responsibility also is on the tech community itself, whilst we try to build these solutions that can scale. Lastly, on this point, I think that a lot more will have to be done for us to be able to bridge that gap. One of the things that excites me about the ICT for accelerated development is the focus that the government has decided to have on local ICT and enabling, if like, that necessary ecosystem. We're still waiting for the day where if a technology company hired a lot of graduates, and a lot of tech companies these days hires a lot of graduates and so on, we will be able to have some tax breaks and exemptions and so on as incentives for hiring a lot of these graduates. We feel that if we're able to hire such people and have incentives that drive the move to keep hiring them, it becomes a necessary impetus for us to be able to grow. And we see this happening, not in Africa though, but happening in other jurisdictions where people hire and therefore are given a lot of other incentives for doing so. So I think a lot is being done currently and the ecosystem is building. Now I see a lot of e-commerce companies now moving into the country simply because of some of the initiatives that the present government and successive governments are putting in place for us to be able to grow the space.
Yes, the same question.
Okay, so first of all, outsider's point of view, all of you are incredibly lucky because your government is interested in technology. That is exceedingly rare in the world. So I would like to thank you all, the governmental types here in the front row, for being here and asking us for help, because that's the only way that digital transformation can happen. We need the help of universities, private sector, and the government to work together to actually make it happen. So I was so impressed by His Excellency, the Vice President's statement today around being an economist and being so interested in tech. And he said it's because tech is economy. And he's absolutely right. It's not a coincidence that the most valuable companies in the world are all tech companies. That did not happen by accident. It happened very much on purpose, and you're going to see it happen over and over again. That said, there's no reason that the next valuable company in the world should not be born here in Accra. There's no reason for it. You have one of the highest literacy rates in the world. You have 30 million people. Your average age is 18. You have tremendous benefit over the West, tremendous benefit. There, our populations are much smaller and our average age is 45. Guess who's more tech literate? People in Ghana. You're all mobile first. Most of your youth have never lived in a world without technology. You can't convince anyone in Germany to store their data in a cloud because they think it's made up. You ask a kid here, do you know what the cloud is? They look at you like you're stupid. Of course they know what the cloud is. You have a tremendous advantage. So here is what I would recommend that the government does. I recommend you think like a tech company and you behave like one. That means you put young people to work. So I'll tell you 3 interesting stories. I got here yesterday and I went to visit the Microsoft office in the Movenpick hotel. I go to the front desk and I said, Microsoft office, they say 9th floor. I try to go to the elevator. The man says, stop. You have to register in the ledger. And I said, what is that? So I go over, he asks me for my name. He fills all this stuff out as if it's 1925. I said, why am I putting my name in this book? Who's going to look at this book again? Anyone? How are you going to look through it? How are you going to find it? Is there OCR technology? And he looks at me like I'm insane. Why isn't there some 18-year-old who's studying computer science standing at that desk with some sort of a form with a database backend registering every person who comes in? Anyone can do that. I can build that for you in an hour. Any of your computer science students can build that for you in an hour. Why aren't we putting the youth to work? Why? So that's one. Second, you have the most advanced airport I have ever seen. I've been to 80 countries. The most advanced airport. It's more advanced than Seattle. It's more advanced than New York. It's definitely more advanced than LA, believe me. It is incredibly advanced. From the moment we landed to out the door on the curb, it took 15 minutes. Through customs and security. It was insane, 15 minutes. But yet, I had to stand in line to fill out a form. That took the longest time. Why am I filling out a form? You already know who I am. I had to get a visa. It was a complex process. You already know all my information. There's no reason to fill out a paper form that the person, he didn't even look at it. I give him the form, he's like, that's nice, fingerprints on this thing, eyeballs here, done. There's no need for a form. No need. The third story is, I was in Kenya last week, and there's 2 young computer science students who are women. They decided to gather up all of the women computer science students they know across Kenya and form a female cybercrime fighters group. So they bring in speakers from all over the world, they invite speakers to come and teach on cybercrime to this group of women. And now these women are all getting jobs because 2 computer science students did it. Why doesn't the government do it here? You can. So the more you think like a tech company, the faster you're going to innovate. You don't need to make big sweeping changes across the country. Do small experiments. Put the young people to work. Why isn't there an 18-year-old sitting right here in the front row taking pictures and live tweeting this? So they truly understand that you're invested. Right now, the gap is that young people don't know you're invested. And you don't know how to invite the young people to the conversation. Just invite them. I just found out that this event is live on Facebook. I had no idea. There's no hashtag. It's not written anywhere. It's like a secret. Why is it a secret? Shouldn't be a secret. Tell the young people. Just tell them. The best thing you can do, honestly, is to co-create with your youth. Your youth is the greatest asset you have. Please co-create with them. Invite them to your meetings. Have them chime in with their opinions on what you can do. Take the curriculum that exists in the world and put them to work. Don't just teach computer science the way you teach math or English or Ghanaian. Don't teach it from books and then take tests. That doesn't mean anything. Instead, have their graduation project be solve a local problem. Solve a local problem. Go to that shop, set up their website. Go to this government office and digitize all their records. Go to that hospital and put in an online check-in system. Have them be project-based. Because then you know your youth are learning, they're growing, they truly understand the value of this technology, and they'll continue to stay in school, and they'll continue to work for your cities, your governments, and your companies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. I've just been told the hashtag is hashtag GDR 2019, just in case.
It shouldn't be a secret, though. The hashtag is a secret.
Should not be a secret. Thank you, Donna. I want to talk about interoperability because that's one of the big pillars, right? So one of the objectives of this document, and by the way, just as when the document was being written, I was, I don't know if Professor Jidono was here, I was Professor Jidono's student, and I was one of the interns that was on, so it's come a bit of a full circle. I was one of the interns I was working on this project, and anybody who knows Professor Jidono knows it's very tough. Ethel, why don't I have my documents? Is he still here? No. So anyway, moving on from that, the question on one of the big pillars of this document is the pillar on ensuring that there is a operability framework that facilitates cross-departmental operations of ICT services across government departments, right? Which I suppose it's a good way to start to break down the government silos. Now, I'd like your views on, I know there's some initiative there, the Ghana interoperability, forgive me, interoperability framework, there's a Ghana Government Enterprise Architecture document. There are a lot of documents that sort of talk to this space. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we begin to tackle, because it's a bit of a beast, right? Providing interoperability, one, between government departments first, and then between governments and whoever wants to pull on government data and use it for services. I'd like your thoughts. Maybe starting with Dr. Sowa. Sorry, Dr. Somwa, forgive me.
That's okay. Well, you're getting me into trouble. Well, I happen to have been the team lead for putting those two documents together a couple of years ago when I was the Director General of the National Information Technology Agency. And working with the World Bank, recognized the fact that one of the fundamental things we needed to put together was a national enterprise architecture. And then, of course, follow up to that was the EGIF, the interoperability framework. Because we recognize the fact that based on the ICT for Accelerated Development document that was put together, we were going to end up with several systems. The Vice President has alluded to several of them which are working right now. And there was a need to provide these standards which will be like a glue that will allow data to flow seamlessly across all these boundaries. We've had comments from ACE as to why his data cannot be available here and there, and we did it. But 10 years down the line, as I said earlier in my comments, the issue is implementation. My personal view is that the Ministry of Communication, which is the lead government agency for this, should really be taxing NITA to make sure that there's really a team that is overseeing its implementation. Quite often we are excited to roll out individual projects. I mean, it's exciting when we hear that a lot of money is being collected from Ministry of Tourism, we are making a lot of money from the ports. But down the line, you realize that you are not able to tie together the data and to mine them. And the last couple of months, I've been doing a lot of reading on AI and where it's taking the world. And AI depends on data. Deep learning depends on data, massive data. And I was talking to Donna that when Microsoft was here in January, I was telling them that they need to come together and do a project, because if you take DVLE, you take GRE, you take customs, you take land commission, if you are able to put their data together and do some deep mining, the government will be sitting when the money will just start coming. Because you realize that the guy who's bringing in so much imports, who's buying all those expensive cars, and who's built all those houses, this is his tax payment. And with AI and data mining, you'll be able to get all the information. So my answer to your question is that I think the Ministry of Communication must take the lead and ensure that NITA has the right people. Right now, I don't even know whether there's somebody at NITA who is fully in charge of ensuring that the various IT projects that are being rolled out, and we've had lots of them today, whether they are all based on the enterprise architecture and the interoperability framework. And without that, we'll go to the end of the road and realize that we are built silos, and this can't talk to each other.
Okay, so NITA must take the lead in ensuring that we have standardization, really, of the projects that are running across government.
Right. Ethel, so if you take a typical scenario where a foreign investor comes into the country with an intention to set up a business, they would typically have to interface with the Registrar General's department. They would eventually have to touch base with the Ghana Revenue Authority. If they're going to employ people, they would be interfacing with other government agencies that have to do with, if you like, payment of SNET contributions of employees and so on. Once it's a foreign company, it would also have to deal directly with the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. Now, all these are government agencies. Now, to my mind, if you look at the Ghana Government Enterprise Framework and the interoperability framework, you know, so the two sort of go hand in hand. If you look at what is happening today, and I keep referencing what is happening today because, like I keep saying, we are just beginning to get traction for a lot of these things that we implemented since 2006 to date. Right now, if I went to the Registrar General's department to sort of try to set up a business, by my tax identification number, my TIN, I would be able to deal directly with the Ghana Revenue Authority and other agencies along those lines. the concern I have as far as the interoperability is a mouthful. As far as the interoperability framework is concerned, for me, is with how we can allow the private sector to come into that conversation to drive it. So, a lot of government agencies are using data, but they're using the data in silos. And until we let the private sector people come in to drive this, it will continue to remain the way they are. Right now, if we are doing KYC and we are into financial services, and if we are doing KYC for any of the merchants or the MTUs that are processing transactions through us, we will typically have to do some due diligence. In doing the due diligence, you would perhaps need to get their tax identification number. You would have to know the persons behind the company that is trying to deal with you, just to be able to avoid the scenario of money laundering, etc. It's almost impossible for a private sector entity to access such data in real time. So typically, I would want to reach out to the Registrar General's Department to know who are the directors behind this company that has applied to want to work with us. Then I may want to
try that out.
Then I may want to touch base with the Ghana Revenue Authority to make sure that these guys are actually fulfilling their obligations and so on and so forth. It's a very difficult, cumbersome relationship. And for me, this infrastructure exists, and perhaps the reason why it's not scaling as quickly as we would want it is because there isn't private sector involvement as yet, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Because I've just been prompted, I'm going to, I have two questions specifically for you, Donna, and Rizwani. Sorry, give me the names. So there's a conversation, the talent conversation, right? So those in the tech ecosystem and those that enjoy the sport on Twitter know that Jumia IPO'd, and part of that conversation was if Jumia is truly an African company, why do they not have a development house? Why do they have developers on the continent of Africa? Their development house is in Portugal. And the comment was made, the CEO said, well, because there's no talent on the continent. And then on the flip side of that, there's a company called Andela. And Andela has now raised in their Series D, they're almost $1 billion valuation, where most service businesses don't get that level of valuation, number one. And the second thing is, their primary job is to find and train tech talent and then import them to companies in other parts of the world to do consulting gigs. And so the question has been, there's one side that says there is no talent, and I'm specifically targeting sort of the multinationals to ask this question on. There's no talent on the continent. There's no talent in Ghana. Versus the other side where actually the talent is being used in other parts of the world. I'd like to sort of hear your thoughts on what you think on the tech talent conversation and regarding to Ghana, at least.
I could not disagree more on there's no tech talent on the continent or in Ghana. That's just an incorrect statement. And here's why I know this. Because the hires we've made from the African continent to work in Seattle are our strongest engineers. They just are. I know this because I do a lot of hiring. I do a lot of hiring in South America, in Mexico, Europe, US, and the talent from the continent is the most innovative and by far is looking to solve real problems because they have to. Because they have to. They're not trying to solve tech problems like how do you deliver fresh fruit via Uber. They're trying to solve problems like how do you have clean water. They're trying to solve problems like how do you reduce maternal mortality. So the tech talent is there. It's not just coding skills, but it's the desire to do the right thing. So I think it's two parts there. But in terms of how do you leverage that talent, it's to solve them, give them hard problems to solve. Give them hard problems to solve and get out of the way. The only problem I've seen on the continent, and this is true for Asia and South America as well, is gatekeepers. There's a lot of people who are in positions of authority who believe they're gatekeepers. And they believe that their job is to Make sure people earn their way to a place where they're allowed to solve a problem. This will hold you back. The reason Silicon Valley moves is because there are no gatekeepers. And the gatekeepers there are, we just go around them. We just go around them because that is the culture. So one thing that you can do, and might be a terrible idea, but hey, let's put it out there. It's to give young people hard problems to solve. Say you want to, I don't actually know if this is a real problem, I'm making this up now. Say you want to figure out how to raise the yield of tomatoes here in Ghana. We know agrotech is a big deal. We know investing in agriculture brings down the cost of everything, and it makes just the community a better place. So you want to raise the yield of tomatoes. Why don't you use blockchain to figure out how to get your tomatoes from field to jollof? I'm very interested in jollof. So it becomes a real problem. You figure out how many of the tomatoes that are grown actually make it onto a truck, how many of those tomatoes make it to the market, how many of those tomatoes get sold. And you can do all of this through this blockchain storytelling model. Starbucks implemented it to do bean to cup. You can use exactly their model. They did it open source. Have some computer science student go learn it, adopt it, and give an answer. And then you'll see the tech talent is here. Companies will see, oh wow, look, tech talent is here. We should hire from here. And the other thing you absolutely must do is storytell and hero make these things. You cannot storytell and hero make your Ghanaian citizens who move overseas and do great work. We love to celebrate people. Oh, they moved to the US and look at how great they're doing. Why are you celebrating that person? Celebrate the person who stayed here and did great things. In the US, we don't celebrate Americans who moved somewhere and did great things. We're like, oh, that's nice, that's cool. But we celebrate the homegrown CEOs. And I hope you do that too.
After that, we will then have a round of questions. So if you have any questions, just start getting ready with your questions. Oh, wait, he just needs to finish his submission.
So this whole area around talent development, I think, is something that is critically important from the perspective of driving digital transformation, right? And I think when you think about developing digital talent, digital literacy skills, it's across two dimensions. It's certainly developing the skills of your citizens, the youth, the entrepreneurs, the investors, and so on and so forth. But it's also about developing the skills of your government employees, because at the end of the day, these government employees are really the catalyst. They are the change agents for driving transformation within government and other industries. Okay, so that's fundamentally what we see. From an IBM perspective, to your specific question on whether there's talent here or whether it's in other countries, IBM created a program specifically for the African continent, and it's called Digital Nation Africa. This is an initiative where we help build digital literacy skills, both from a business perspective as well as a technology perspective. So the kind of skills we're developing from a business perspective, they're around critical thinking, they're around creativity, they're around problem solving, they're around entrepreneurship, they're around risk taking, right? From a technology perspective, we're helping build skills around IoT, AI, data, cloud, analytics, and so on and so forth, blockchain, right? So we're helping building skills of African youth, and our goal is, and we call these new collar skills. So our goal is to really build skills of African youth to build out new collar jobs. These are the jobs of the future that we think are going to be critically important. In addition to that, what we're also trying to do is align those skills in an industry context. So use those skills to help address problems in agriculture, to help address problems in water management, to help address problems in education, in healthcare, and so on and so forth. So we combine this with what we call an IBM Garage, where citizens, the youth, the entrepreneurs, the investors can come in. They can be part of this, this ecosystem where they come up with new solutions for real-world problems. So we absolutely think that Africa is where there is abundance of youth. This is where the skills need to be developed. In fact, we started our whole Digital Nation Africa. It's called DNA, Digital Nation Africa. It's something that IBM, it's part of our corporate, social responsibility. It's our CSR initiative. And we feel that developing the skills in the African continent is absolutely critical. In fact, as we look at other markets, those are actually dovetailing off of the African continent. So now the company is starting to look at, do we need to do a similar thing for the Middle East region? Do we need to do something similar to in the United States and so on? But again, it all started here in Africa, and we think this is where the skills need to be developed for the future.
Thank you. Yes, we have a ready-made question.
It is often said that when dry bones are mentioned, old men get worried. My name is David Jew, Acting Director General of NITA, and I've been hearing the name of my agency popping up a few times. So maybe I need to try. I think part of the problem is maybe there isn't sufficient information out there about what NITA is doing. And it's something we've become aware of and are trying to address. So just this big issue about NITA. Let me position NITA as such. NITA is government's CIO office, basically. Everybody sees NITA as trying to control. That's not the remit, per se. The remit is to ensure government services work, delivery of core government services, and to bring some sanity into the environment. It's a regulator, and there's always this question about regulation versus competing with the private sector and the delivery of services. My view is on the delivery of services, what the private sector, especially in the most challenging one, which is connectivity, is I had a different idea about connectivity, and that it really wasn't NITA's place to do, per se. The idea was to challenge the private sector to do so. The problem is, the private sector also they always look at the bottom line. So whilst it's very nice for C-Squared, MTN, Vodafone to provide in Accra, Kumasi, the places where they are, when it comes to going to those rural areas where government has offices, they are not interested. Government still needs to work. So NITA does that heavy lifting. Eastern Corridor. Back in the day when it was done, the private sector wasn't going to spend that sort of money to build that fiber optic network. So government took a decision to do so, which is now being used by the private sector. Yet the arguments about, stability and stuff. So NITA's role sometimes when it comes to these things is not because we want to, but because sometimes there's a necessity. When government agencies want to talk to each other, it's irrespective of the location. We have to provide it. We have 120 cell sites across the nation to provide the services. I heard a panelist earlier on say NITA has a lot of money. I don't know where she got that information. The Vice President is here. He knows the discussions that are being had in Cabinet just to make sure NITA can position itself to support government. I won't go into the details of the figures. But the issue is this. NITA's involvement to the private sector, about a few weeks ago, we held something called a forum event, at which we were supposed to discuss with the private sector how we interact with them as government. Framers of the law decided this issue about how government entities work with or government works with the private entities is important. So the challenge is out there now for the private sector to set itself up. The information was available. They actually get positions on the NITA board to ensure there's this exchange of ideas and interaction between the private sector and the board of NITA. I think they also get a board in the domain name registration and probably GIFEC. So there's grounds for these things to happen. So I hope the private sector will step up, work with us to make sure these things happen. So that's the first thing. Secondly,
David,
yes.
I'm
The
sure
other
other
questions,
people, yes.
but I'm addressing some very key ones.
Okay.
Interoperability frameworks. Nobody likes a policeman. I see private companies running around developing solutions for government. Not many of them come to NITA to come and say, what is it that we need to look out for before we move? This framework has been in place. I'm sure tomorrow if we start pulling down applications that have been written, not many of them would have looked at it to conform. So just to cut a long story short, Dr. Somwa raised it. NITA has been restructured a little. There's now a compliance unit which deals with compliance, standards, interoperability framework, enterprise architecture. There's a digital innovation group which will be working more closely with the private sector. So some of these issues have been addressed. We can go on and on, but I'm sure I'll share these things at other forums, so I'll give others a chance to speak.
I will say on that, you said there was a forum a while back. Maybe part of the conversation is, even though there's a broad conversation with private sector, but there's also the burgeoning tech ecosystem, right? So we're trying to build out this lobby or this, I suppose, chamber that then interacts with you. And part of that is maybe our what we promise you is that once you are ready, then we can bring our people to sit with you so that we can understand what's happening on your side. And then, thank you. All right, let's go.
Hello, thank you very much. Let me say we are very grateful for the panelists and all the diverse views that they've brought here. I just want to talk about the issue of our implementation. We can assure you that I'm sure from where we sit and our record for the past 2 years should tell you that the reason why we are here today is because we want to make sure that we move from the culture of just putting things together and making sure that we implement them. So please feel free, be very confident that whatever you tell us, you're going to come in and it's going to be implemented. Just as you heard from my acting director of NITA, and a lot of things, we've privatized part of NITA. We have privatized part of NITA, and I can assure you that very soon, and through the cabinet, all government agencies cannot procure. The issue of silos, interoperability to be addressed. All government agencies cannot procure any IT software, any hardware without recourse to NITA to ensure, and we don't want that duplication and silos-based working. So the issues that you cabinet will be fully implemented. I want to check a bit on the issue about innovation. We have an Accra Digital Center where it's a subsidized real estate where we will provide the environment for innovators and our young population to go. And in there, we have a mobile lab. We have a lab that will test mobile applications, an innovation hub. We also have one in the KNUST that takes care of the northern part of the country. And I'm sure that presently the application app used for KNUST was provided by the local entrepreneur who are actually based in the KNUST. So we'll welcome a lot of ideas here and innovation, how we can partner with the private sector so that our intended plan of setting up mini technology parks across the country can be realized. In terms of the data and accessibility, it is our plan that presently we're working with the private sector where GIFEC provides the enabling environment, and we have third-party private sector to use cellular access to open up the gap, the whole of the country. We realize it's a bit slow. We are looking at innovative ways to ensure that hopefully by next year we should have 95% of the country all connected either through fiber or through cellular channels to ensure that we'll be able to reap the full benefits of all this digitization that we're speaking about. Earlier, the issue about cyber security. At the moment, we have fully implemented national cybersecurity policy and strategy. What we are doing present that we have separated now for the first time the policy from the strategy, which we are in the process of engaging with stakeholders, and I'm sure this will be a nice platform for stakeholders to really get closer to us and come up with ideas how we can ensure cyber security and to strengthen that. And the key thing is that we are coming out with a cyber law. that intends to set up a national cybersecurity authority that will superintend and make sure that there's a secretariat and authority that oversees all the cybersecurity issues that will ensure that we have a resilient, reliable ecosystem in the digital economy. And last year, His Excellency the Vice President gratefully launched the Safe Digital Ghana program, which used to be just a one-day thing. We moved it to 1 month, and now we have made it an annual, ongoing thing. So please be very, very sure that we are really determined to implement all the things of SWADA you started. This is part of that, and so feel free to help us. Feel free to ensure that you bring out your ideas, and you can be sure that it will be implemented. The President said we're in a hurry, and that's not a cliche. We are definitely in a hurry to ensure that we formalize the economy and to move the ICT for AD, that's ICT for Asset Development, to the next step and up to 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, I've been to the Akwa Digital Center. In the last couple of months, they've been doing a really good job in providing a space for tech entrepreneurs to begin to set up. So thank you very much. Do you have any more questions?
Can I just comment on this point
Sure.
that I think you made, which was around this whole idea of an innovation hub that you have, and how private sector could potentially help and partner with you in that area. And we are doing this in other countries, and I'll give you some thoughts around that. So clearly you've made the environment. I think where the private sector can come in is bring their assets, bring their methodologies, right? So what am I talking about? Bring in the assets that we have from a data management, from an analytics perspective. So bring our methodology around design thinking, around running jam sessions, running hackathons, running agile methodologies. So we're happy to do that, right? Because I think what we see more and more is it's not just about coming up with ideas, but it's about turning those ideas into what we call MVPs, minimal viable products, right? So we can help you, and the way you create those MVPs is coming up with those ideas, which is what your innovation hub environment can bring, and then using the technologies, the tools, the assets that we have as technology companies to help actually bring those ideas to reality, right? And so we're happy to do that. That's the kind of thing that we engage with innovation hubs and government organizations. On the other big plus that organizations like IBM can bring here are our industry thinking, are our global perspective, are the research teams and the mathematicians that we have in our lab. So again, all of that we can bring to bear, actually do these MVPs and really take some of these ideas and put them out in the field from a co-creation perspective.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Isaac Wiafe, and I'm from University of Ghana Computer Science Department. I was very happy when Donna was talking about universities, because we are visibly missing when it comes to ICT. And we're not happy about it, but we find it very difficult to voice it out. Because when you start talking about it, it makes it look like as if you're going into politics. So we stay in our corner and then we keep doing our things. Now, what is happening that is very interesting is that when you look at the invitation list, we have only 2 slots for universities, KNUST and University of Ghana. But we have a lot of universities in Ghana doing Ashashi. Ashashi is not officially invited. They have a rep here. So this is a problem. Now, if you look at the type of research that we are doing, and like Donna is saying, most of the problems that people are talking about, we have solved them. About 70% of the problems, we have solved them, and they are sitting on the shelves. If I tell you that we are even now working on how to expand bandwidth on Internet of Underwater Things, will people believe it? Right in Ghana, KNUST. UG Ghana. But then it looks as if nobody is interested in the things we are doing. So what happens is that we do this, we look for funders and donors outside the country, we finish, we publish those papers, it becomes their property, then government of Ghana and the industry goes and then purchase those ideas and pay lump sums of money for this. But the ideas are coming here. I was trained by Professor Judo, and I keep asking myself, with all the names that he's made, what is he doing to Ghana? He's not getting that forum to put a lot. I was part of the team that developed the policy years ago when he was bringing us up. But then, yes, some things have been done. But please, we need to make conscious effort. The government should put some research fund for ICT and say that we have this amount of money allocated for ICT every year. People should research into it and then go into it. Because you go online to look for ICT funding in Ghana and there is nothing. So that is our contribution. We're really happy Donna was making this interesting. Thank you very much.
Sorry, let me come in. I don't think we should be beating ourselves too hard. The fact that we're here today means that we want to go somewhere. And the fact that you've come here today and you've seen your prof as part of the panelists should let you know that there's a different kind of thinking. The minister and the rest of us at the ministry are not just going around radio stations closing them down. We are doing a lot of hard work. Okay? We are doing a lot of hard work. I mean, there's actually a policy, the policy for sharing data between the private sector and government. Okay? There's funding for the learning hubs that we're doing. So there's a lot. I think we probably are not telling too much of our story. Okay, but I guess that is the reason why we've all come here today. And this is not the end of the process to develop the strategy or to develop the policy. The output of the work that we're doing today is going to be analyzed, is going to be turned around, and we're going to have a retreat, a 2-day retreat with some of you going somewhere outside Accra. Okay, we are going to lock you people up. And we are going to start thinking and putting things down on paper. And when we come out with that, we know that we are in a good place. So we are not leaving academia away at all. I mean, there's academia, there's the private sector, there's the industry, and of course, there's the policymakers. The whole ecosystem is what we are bringing together. I hope that you appreciate what we are trying to do. Yeah, it's the clicking. Thank you.
Can I jump in quickly? Awesome. Outsider's perspective. You're both saying the same thing. You're saying we're trying. You're saying we're trying. One easy way to solve this problem is anytime you all form a committee to do anything. You're going on a retreat, you've got the incubation center, you're trying to figure out how to bring youth into defense. Have someone under the age of 21 on your committee because you're building their future. They should be involved. They should be co-creating their future. I love that term, use it all the time. It's important that you co-create with the people you're building it for. That way they'll use it. And that way they'll tell all their friends. And like me, they'll go take a selfie with the vice president and share it on Twitter. And you, go spread the word among your brethren. Like, they're trying. We got to work with them. We have to train them a little bit, right? And some of it, it's, oh no, it's not Ghanaian culture. But it is youth culture. And youth culture is the same. Doesn't matter if you're in Ghana or Silicon Valley. Thank you.
We have our last question.
Hi, I'm Adelaide from Ghana Tech Lab. I'd like to comment on what Donna said and has been said so far about the talent in the continent. I don't believe there isn't tech talent in Ghana, but then I believe we don't have the platform to develop the tech talent. There are so many developers in this country, but they don't have the infrastructure and the equipment that are needed. So, for example, in my company, Ghana Tech Lab, we have set up a makerspace which has top-notch infrastructure. We have certain equipment, and people come there and they are wowed. Currently, we are organizing a mobile app development training across Ghana, in Takoradi, in Kumasi, Upper West, Upper East, Northern Region, Volta Region, and Accra. And we are going to have a hackathon. We are training over 200 people. The idea is to help them develop ideas and then have startups that are viable enough. So I believe it is about time we created more of the likes of Ghana Tech Lab, because by partnering with even developers, we can get them to come to our office and then come and also work on their ideas that they have and develop them. So it's not just about the theoretical lessons in school, but it should be more practical. So you learn in school, but you come out, you should have an on-the-job experience in a space like Ghana Tech Lab. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to wrap up, but thank you for everyone. I do want to say specifically to the Vice President and his team that we were really grateful for the fact that you've been open to the tech ecosystem and to listening to us. It's fairly new to us for our ideas, for us to be invited to the table and for our thoughts to be listened to. And we hope that as we ourselves grow and establish an ecosystem, that the connection between you and us will be stronger, and so that we can support you to begin to build out the things that you do want to, the solutions to the problems that you want to solve in Ghana. And it's not all doom and gloom, I suppose, for Ghana Tech. I think that if you step back and you look at the data, if you look at tech investment that has been coming into Africa over the last 3 years, you realize that there are 5 countries over the last 3 years that's steadily on the top 5, right? So you have your South Africa, you have your Kenya, but Ghana is always there. In other fourth of it, we keep up or down. So it means that there is the recognition that there is work being done here, that things being built here, because the investors are actually putting money here. Yes, the money is going to a lot of fintechs, and to Cofie's people, but I think that the more we can show things like the work that we do in agri-tech and the other spaces and the solutions we're solving, will begin to attract more investors, which means that the tech folks here are able to better support the courses and the things that you want to do in Ghana. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to the team.
Thank you very much, Ethel. A few housekeeping issues. Please continue the conversations away from the stage. We will be having lunch from here. This room will be locked during lunch, so your valuables are safe. If there's anything you absolutely need with you, please take it along, because once we leave this room, it will be locked until the next session starts. Lunch is going to be about 40 to 45 minutes. The ushers will show you to where we'll be having lunch. And the panelists in the industrial technology session, please see your moderator. I believe you can see him to my left by the screen. That's Mr. Abu. And I think that's the only announcement we have. So enjoy lunch. Please continue the conversations. Ask all the questions that unfortunately you could not ask here. And we'll see you again soon.